Use your words on the Wisconsin Podcastathon. Take it away, guys.
Hey, welcome everyone. This is Paul with Use Your Words Podcast. Welcome. Hopefully you can hear and see us properly. Hopefully our internet doesn't die on us here. I'm joined with Aaron to my left, as well as Josh Brewer. So I just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming on this podcastathon. The whole concept of being able to raise money is something that for a good cause for Live For is awesome, especially right now with children who aren't having trouble necessarily finding food. I was going through the statistics and the data, and it's interesting. I don't know if you guys know this, Josh, Aaron here. Nearly 1 in 5 children right now during coronavirus do not have enough to eat. That's due to a multiple number of factors. So that could be due to the fact that their parents were laid off, they lost their jobs, or food prices have also gone up recently. So the cost of basic groceries, what people were able to buy back in the day is just gone down. So, everything that they had before has, not working as much. And if you have kids, and none of us have this yet, Josh will soon have this because his triplets are going to be on the way shortly. Josh will soon learn what it's like to have 3 teenagers in the house just going through food at an exponential rate. If we think back to when we were teenagers and the amount of food that we went through, especially me and you, Aaron, are a little on the bigger side here. We're not exactly on the tiny side like Joshy boy here.
We're not shy about our food.
Oh, no, not at all. As Mr. Josh Johnson was trying to cut off a little bit of
it's paint.
Oh, okay. Sure. There was some food stains on his shirt. He was trying to cut away with the knife before we started. Like, gotta get away. So, everyone who's here listening, everyone who is here participating, thank you. And I think it is important for the fact that we do raise some money for Live For to be able to help them do their mission. And their mission outside of feeding people right now during COVID is something that is very important. But before we get going, I just want to say this. This weekend's podcastathon is presented by the Wisconsin Podcast Association. Proceeds from this weekend's event go towards Live For's mission to provide food for struggling families throughout Wisconsin. Visit live-for.org, and that's F-O-R, or wisconsinpodcast.com to make a donation. So one of the things that Live For does, Aaron, Josh, in case you're not familiar 100% here, is they help kids, especially kids with like special needs, connect socially, physically, mentally. So they help them get to camps and that. They help them do paddleboarding. They help them meet up with other people who have special needs as well and just socialize. And in a way, I kind of look at it and I think, this is something that we've done as well. This is something that not necessarily for special needs. No. Okay. Well,
debatable.
That's debatable for you. We won't get into that. But what it is though, is, it in a way it's mentorship. They're helping mentor these young kids in a way that will really help them be able to get a jump start into the future in a way that maybe they wouldn't have without a foundation like Live For coming in and saying, hey, look, here, we're going to help you do this. And that got me thinking, in all of our lives, we either have been mentored or we mentor. For those of you who have never listened here before, let me just interject this. I cannot speak English
all the time
to save my life. English is my primary language, and yet I cannot speak it, and I have no qualms about that. But anyways, so you, Aaron, and Josh, you have been kind of through that flip a little more recently than I have. I'm a little bit older than you guys, where you guys were on that mentoree side, where you were being mentored for, and then all of a sudden you flipped over to be a youth group member, a leader,
never left. And
you got to mentor a bunch of kids. So I'm going through here, and I'm just going to tell some things here about this. And I will say this: this is hard work that these people are doing at Live For. It is not easy at times, and that can be with anyone. That doesn't. I'm not saying because these kids that they're working with have special needs. I'm saying mentoring is hard work. Period. And it is something that I commend them for 100%. Because I have been working with teens and youth group members and the church and that since I was probably around 21. I'm 37 now. So if you can do
Couple of years.
quick basic math, Aaron, that's 16 years now I've been doing that.
Yeah.
And it has never been an easy thing for me. It has always been one of those things of you worry about the kid, but you got to not worry so much where you get so consumed with it. And it's one of those things that I have had so many good memories from, as well as so many bad sleepless nights as well. And I don't know about you, Aaron, if you've had any of those yet. You still got a ways to go. Same with you, Josh, on that. But it's entertaining to say the least at times, and it's also just downright scary and frustrating.
Right.
So I think about some of the highlights here, while doing this, some of the joys in the fact that I almost have more joy out of helping other people than I do myself at times. Seeing that spark light up in their face of, oh, I get it now. And even if it's not till years later, I think back to when you were a teen, Mr. Johnson. You're going, I know.
That was a scary time. That was a really scary
Oh, you were
time.
right there with me, boy.
Hey,
We will
we're talking about you right now.
We'll get to you in a second.
I know.
Okay. But I think of, those conversations that we had when you decided, okay, so quick backstory. All three of us here are Christians. We raised in, well, not necessarily all raised in church. I wasn't. But I met these two through when they were youth group students and kind of made them one of my, I guess you could say projects. Right. They're not a project. I want to have that real relationship, that real mentor-mentee relationship with them. And I remember one time, Aaron, when you were like, I'm done, essentially. You sent me that message, the October conversation.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, I'm not coming. And we ended up sitting. It felt like we were in a standoff. Opposite sides of the yard. And so something that I learned from that whole experience, and I know the people, when they mentor, regardless of how they're mentoring, whether they're mentoring, kids who have special needs, whether they're mentoring people from the inner city in school, however, sometimes you have to go that extra mile and you have to spend that extra time to say, hey, I'm not letting you stop doing X.
Right.
And it's not like I'm going to hold you down the ground and be like, say you're going to do this.
You're going to do it and you're going to like it.
No, it's more like, hey, look, I'm here. We're both here. I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
And, I remember that conversation because we literally were at opposite ends of the yard. It was like diagonal from one another, as maximum distance as you could get.
Pretty much. I really didn't want to have anything to do with anything at that moment. I was like, no, I don't want to talk to anybody. Or, well, I guess not anybody, specifically you at the moment, because you're like, what's wrong? And then I don't want to talk about what's wrong or anything. But then, yeah, looking back on that, it's like, man, I'm such an idiot.
Hey, we're all idiots at some point, so don't worry about that. The fact that you can look back on it now and say,
right.
Oh man, I was an idiot.
Yeah, I don't really know. It's getting caught up in that mindset of the time and wanting what you think is best for you, but then you're obviously not in the right mindset at the moment. So now looking back, I was like, yeah, Paul was doing what was right at the moment. I'm trying to come and just help and talk it out. And my little annoying self didn't want to have that. But it happened. So it was for the best. I hope, right? I think so.
That's up to you.
Right?
I can't decide what's best for you.
I'll make up my mind on this.
No,
okay?
I can't do that. But so, being on that one side, like where you were now, what was it kind of like switching from being someone who was, I guess, primarily receiving help to now being one on the flip side whose primary role is to help the younger generation?
It's weird.
Why is it weird?
Well, okay, for I guess going from church to the youth group stuff,
Mhm.
for me it was awkward because I was already friends with some of the kids that were in there, and I never left. So it's
Yeah.
like I was like always kind of the student, but now like, well, now you're a leader because you're not really in the age range of the youth group anymore. So now you're gonna be a leader. I'm like, ugh. So that was I guess the awkward part for me. For that specific thing. But now again, as well as you guys know, y'all don't know. I haven't been there for wow, I don't know. Has it been a couple years already, or is it? I don't know. It's been a while.
It's been 1 year for sure.
It's been about a year.
Yeah. Okay. But besides that, it's now with my nephews
Mhm.
and stuff, and especially the oldest one. It's like been able to like talk to him more, and like he's been FaceTiming me. Which man, when he when he wants to try and get my attention, he does not stop calling. So, which
Gee.
I mean, it's I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but he stops my music because a call interrupts my music.
Oh.
He knows what he's
He
doing.
just yeah, he does. But no, it's I guess looking at that, that's I don't know. That's awesome that he'd actually like to talk to his uncle that much.
Yeah.
So
And it
Yeah.
kind of probably feels good to be able to offer advice to your nephew and that, and help him out and mentor him a little bit, because it's a weird, and I found this, and this is true across kids of every age. For whatever reason, they are more willing to, for the most part, to talk to everyone else but their parents.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of the stuff I probably ever talked to you about, I never wanted to talk to my parents.
You're right.
Which did I eventually? Yeah, I did. But it's like my first get go, I was like, man, I'm going to tell somebody else. So
Right.
I'm not going to them about it.
And that's why it's important for organizations that to offer these mentorship type things. And it's not necessarily where you have to be like, I am going to mentor you. That is my goal. It sometimes just naturally happens by helping kids go out into the wild, go paddleboarding. It happens
Right.
in the conversations. It happens when you take them to camp, and they're getting friends for a lifetime, but at the same time, you're also just kind of feeding into their life. And it's always fun to be able to feed into other people's lives, because honestly, that is a life worth living, where you're not just being selfish, where you're
Consuming and
helping
taking
others.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Brewer,
Yeah, Brewer.
over to you, sir. You were actually not as big of an issue as a teenager
No.
as this one.
No.
No, but I mean, I have my things.
Yeah, I know.
So
So, do you have any thoughts on switching over from kind of that mentee to mentor? Because you've done that even more recently than Johnson has, kind of.
I it's a powerful switch, and when I say powerful, I'm talking about the fact that you develop a relationship with some of these kids. And when you look at somebody that has a 10, 20-year age gap, you have that slight mentality of they don't know what I'm going through.
Right.
They were my age 20, 30, 40, 60, whatever the age is. They were years ago. They don't know what I'm going through today.
Which is my thought with you two every day.
Yeah, and it's just the only thing that probably changes is the way that we communicate and the way that stuff gets done, and that's just solely technology. Otherwise, all the person-to-person stuff, the images or whatever it might be, family relationships that are bad, all that's the same. It's been the same way, 100 years ago. So it's interesting because as a child you have that mentality of nobody can relate to me, but then when you go from being a youth group kid to a leader, you have such a tight relationship, and there's almost like this really immediate trust that you can get with the kids, because they're like, oh, hey, I was chit-chatting with you and now you're telling me how to live my life. I think I'd listen to you a little bit more than Paul or something like that. So I mean, but then at the same time too, the other issue you can have is that authoritative figure. They might not take you as seriously as someone they don't know that well, because they know how to push your buttons easier. Some of the kids look at Paul and they go, I push the wrong buttons on Paul, I'm probably going to die. They look at me and they go, hi, push every button on Josh, and he's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
So you also have that aspect too. So it's a powerful, but at the same time, a very weak position. But I definitely like being able to sit there and watch these kids smile and know that I'm helping them understand something, or I'm helping them experience. And one of my favorite memories is, we were at the range. What was it? 2 years ago at camp, and we were sitting there, and I brought some explosives, some tannerite, legal explosives.
Yeah.
And
church.
I had brought one.
Go on, Josh. Go on.
I
Go
had
on.
brought a big rifle, and one of the kids there, he was still trying to get used to everybody, and he was kind of hanging around me the whole weekend. And so I said, hey, take this big gun, point and shoot. So he's shooting a few, and I'm like, all right, you got to aim a little higher and stuff. And right as I start recording his phone, he sits there and he pulls the trigger, the gun goes off, then you have a massive explosion in front of him, and you watch his face freeze, and then this smile grows on his face as his eyes get wider.
Yeah.
And that just made my weekend, because I'm helping this kid experience something that he may have not been able to experience at home.
One would hope
Well,
not.
I would, yeah, I hope you couldn't do that at home.
And by at home, I mean
Yeah.
just his life experience at home. Because I mean, I don't know if his dad would buy explosives and shoot him. So I mean, that's something you don't get to experience every day.
Not in home, at least.
Not in the backyard.
No,
Yeah.
no. I mean, some people could, but
You're
probably not
tripping.
him. I don't know. But anyways, just being able to have those moments where you're just able to make their day, or them just to look up to you and just ask questions. And one of the other times is when we were sitting there, and I think it was at that camp too. A bunch of the guys, a lot of them are very rowdy. A lot of them like to chit chat with each other. And I just sat there, and I think I started getting teary-eyed, and they all just shut up and started looking at me. And I was just being real. No, I was just
emotional guy.
No, I was just being real with them, and how they need to take these times serious. They need to listen to what we say, because no matter what age range, we've been there, we've done that. We're saying this because we don't want them to do it too. We don't want them to experience too. And if they are experiencing it, we're here to help, because we know what it's like to not get the help and prolong that experience. And so,
Or we also, honestly, or we also know we've been trying. Someone's tried to give us the help, but then we're like, nah, dude.
You thought you knew better than the rest of us.
Yeah.
I've seen that a few times.
But no, I mean, the switch and all, I mean, it's kind of like a humbling experience, because it's not like you have more responsibility that you have to deal with, and you have to, it's almost, as much as a lot of people, I think, don't like that level of responsibility, it's almost like an honor. It's almost like an honor to be able to sit there and teach someone else, because you were taught. They need to be taught.
It's now your responsibility to pass on that teaching.
Thank you. And so, it's a humbling and honoring experience, as well as it is a very weird experience, because you go from having to listen to the pastor, and now the pastor says, Josh, yell at him. All right.
Oh my goodness.
So let me tell you one of the hardest parts about mentoring here. And it's not the awkward conversations. It's not the sitting on opposite sides of the lawn from the other person. One of the hardest parts is you build a relationship with someone, and then this is one of the hardest and one of the best parts. You build that relationship with that person, and then they no longer need you to help them along as a mentor. And maybe they're moving or they're graduating, especially like working with the high schoolers and that. They graduate, they're going to college, and they're gone. And all of a sudden it's like, boom, that connection's gone. You still have the connection, but social media, but really social media connection,
Yeah.
And I can see that where it's the mentor to the mentee almost from how I see it from an outside picture, it's almost like the mentor has a strong relationship with the person that he's mentoring, teaching, and the person who's receiving it doesn't quite see that same relationship. And they kind of, in some cases they do, in some cases they don't, from really how I've seen it. So I can definitely see where you're coming from that.
Like I said, that's one of the hardest, but I think one of the best aspects of it, because you want that person to be able to succeed on their own. You want that person to be able to take off and fly. You want Aaron to go off and live in his own apartment or place on his own away from his parents' house.
It's in the works. Maybe.
Yeah, sure. I'll believe it when you turn 50 and that happens.
You want him to get a dog. You want him to find someone that he can settle down with the rest of his life.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But you want to see that happen, but at the same time you kind of don't, because you're kind of like, I want to keep that relationship, but just like, no, I gotta let them move on.
Oh yeah.
Which, I mean, I hope I
hope you don't ever move
if
on.
I ever do move away, hopefully I'll still be able to come and see you guys.
You're
We'll
not
still
moving
have that
away.
relationship connection.
No, you moved your dad to me.
Okay, great. Well, adios.
No.
I blacklisted you in every single county in the entire U.S. except for Racine. No county will let you live in it except Racine. Sorry, you're staying.
All right then.
All right, guys. So we only got a couple more minutes here.
Yes.
So is there anything else that you want to add specifically regarding your final thoughts on mentorship, and that your thoughts within that? Because literally we got like 3 minutes. So
Shoot. Gosh. Well, I'm just thinking about what you were even talking about earlier for the whole COVID, not the whole mentoring stuff, but like with the COVID and stuff and helping each other out. And
yeah,
it's crazy to see how this whole situation has really affected people. I mean, I'm seeing families and stuff like that. Well, yesterday I was driving around going to Pick and Save and saw there was a family sitting outside and they had like their cardboard with stuff written on it. And I was like, man, like I can't imagine when you're talking about how much expensive food is and then having to raise a family with that.
right.
So,
And especially in Wisconsin, where they're backlogged on the unemployment benefits. So some people who maybe have gotten furloughed or laid off haven't been able to get their unemployment benefits.
yeah.
Which it's sad that it's a concept. It's also sad because of how old the computer systems are to do it, but that's another conversation.
Right.
But yeah, I know.
It's so, I mean, he wasn't. I had the thought, I was like, you know what? I'm about to go to a grocery store and get myself something that I don't need. So then, thankfully, I was driving, so my friend couldn't stop me from doing whatever, but I turned around and pulled back, and pretty much I just handed him all the cash that was in the wallet. So I was like, you know what? Here you go. Because I don't know. I don't know what else to do in that situation
Right.
other than,
And at that point, it's a family or whatever. They need money. They need resources. And again, that's what Live For is doing right now. They are That's what this podcastathon is doing, raising money to be able to feed families across Wisconsin.
Which is awesome. Thank you for that. That's awesome.
Because we need to be able to do that. We need to stick together, especially now during these uncertain times. When we have, protests, when we have food shortages, food price risings, and everything like that, we need as a community to stick together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way. We can talk all day about how good mentoring and mentorship is, but the fact of the matter is, if a kid is going hungry, if families are going hungry, none of that matters in the end, because we have to take care of those core needs first. And those core needs include making sure that kids and families are fed.
Yeah.
So if you haven't, please go to WisconsinPodcastAssociation.com or go to WisconsinPodcast.com, or live-4.org. Make a donation. Make someone else's life a little bit better. Allow them to be fed. Thank you for joining us this week on Use Your Words Podcast during this podcastathon. And we will turn it back over to whoever it is that is taking the reins from here.
See ya.
Have a good one, everyone.
I wanna go wherever you will go. Without you, I would just lost my way. We used to take photos on your willow, and then we would go to the bay and play. Oh, those days were days we miss. Now we're old, ain't nothing to do. Even we're
Stuck Coaching's mission is to provide businesses with the strategic planning and execution tools that result in job creation and economic growth. These are the same tools the founders use to grow their aerospace startup into an international $100 million organization. Stuck Coaching hopes to watch more businesses flourish in Wisconsin and the world. It happened to them, it's happening for their clients, and it can happen to you. Learn more now at getunstuck.com.